Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Irfan and this video is brought to you by Mavio. Follow us on social media and let's connect and build together. So today we will be focusing on the legal safeguards. We will be focusing on different data agreements and HIPAA policies. We will be navigating through the legal architecture of protected health information, different data agreements like the business associate agreements and the data use agreements, etc. So let's get into it. So the goal of this legal architecture is to prioritize compliance and to comply with the law. And to do that, we need to understand the architecture required to move our clinical data from our hospital environment or a research our hospital environment to a research environment or a cloud server. And the reality is that legal compliance is as vital as model accuracy. We discussed about model accuracy. We know that in clinical data science, our model needs to be accurate, our model needs to be interpretable, and it has to have that explainability. But without proper data usage agreements or business associate agreements, this project will represent a major organizational liability because compliance is as important as accuracy. Okay, so to de-identify our data and to make sure that the data is not traced back to the individuals from whom the data is taken, HIPAA defined 18 specific data points that we need to strip from our data under a method called Safe Harbor. So these identifiers include direct information like name, social security numbers, etc. And then temporal data like specific dates. We can have years, we can have birth year or admission discharge or death year, but we cannot have those specific dates. Then geography, which can include subdivisions that are smaller than a state. So city or specific address, etc. We can have state or country, but we cannot have any subdivision that is smaller than state. And last but not the least, we have the digital or biological footprint like IPs, biometrics, URLs, etc. So we need to strip all these data points to make sure that our data cannot be traced back directly into the individuals. When we are moving our data, when a hospital is moving its data from on premises to a cloud server, there is a legal contract that needs to be signed between the HIPAA code entity, which is the hospital, and the business associate, which is basically the cloud provider like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, etc. So this legal contract is called business associate agreement, and it includes, but it's not limited to shared liability to ensure that the cloud vendor like AWS is also liable for security as well as the organization. And it requires the cloud vendors like Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud that they must sign a BAA for protected health information. And finally, there is the vendor duty, which is a direct agreement to protect all protected health information which is processed by the cloud. So this is an agreement between a cloud provider and the hospital, which is a HIPAA code entity. Then we have the data use agreements. So there is this thing called limited data sets. And limited data set is a subset of our protected health information. And it includes different indirect markers or data points like specific dates or geography, which we need for temporal modeling. And so we can trace back using those data points, using those data or identifiers, we can trace back to the individual indirectly. But in limited data sets, any direct identifiers like names or social security numbers are excluded. So we have the limited data sets, and these are sensitive because anyone can trace back indirectly to the individuals. So in order to make sure the privacy of the individuals, there are strict restrictions which forbids researchers from attempting re-identification or contacting individuals found in the dataset. So so they have access to the limited data sets because they're needed for temporal modeling and the research purposes. But there are also strict restrictions that just because you can re-identify or contact those individuals, you must not. So this is the data use agreement. Then there is the responsibility of the cloud vendors. They need to make sure encryption that the clinical data must be encrypted both at rest and in transit. So it means that when the data is staying in cloud like S3 or something like that, it needs to be encrypted. And when it's moving through the internet or in the web, it must be encrypted in transit as well. And the next is to have strict identity and access management for researchers to make sure that unauthorized people cannot access that sensitive clinical information. And last but not the least, we have audit logs. The cloud vendor needs to make sure, needs to keep track of continuous records of who accessed what and when. And this is very important for responsibility or and for keeping track of who did what to which type of data to make sure that there are not any inconsistencies, and if anything happens we can track back to who did it and when did they do it. Okay, if a breach happens, so after all that, if if the PHI or the protected health information breach happens, and if it affects more than 500 individuals, then HIPAA mandates the organization to do the following things. Organization direct must send a direct notification to the Health and Human Services Secretary. For example, if today a breach happens in the United States, they must send a direct notification to RFK Jr. Then they must send a mandatory notification to prominent media outlets. And finally, they must all notify to the affected patients via a first class email. So this is the protocol, and HIPAA mandates the organization to do those things. Okay, so one of the most important thing in the legal architecture of clinical data is that auditing and monitoring everything. When we are dealing with clinical data pipelines, we must make sure to monitor and ensure zero leaks during our pre-processing pipelines and workflows. And we also have to keep integrity checks, which are basically validations that clinical records have not been altered or corrupted during de-identification. Because when we are de-identifying the data, we are stripping the data of those identifiers. We need to make sure that the data is still valuable and the data still holds that meaning that it had before the de-identification process, and we do not alter the underlying trends and the underlying meaning of the data. So we have to have proper systems and integrity checks for that. Then there is the problem of third party and vendor risks. So we have discussed some frameworks like Smart on FHIR or CDS hooks. Those are third party vendors. They do not work inside, some of them do, but they do not work inside the EHR. So what we need is that we need to make sure that these frameworks must thoroughly evaluate every third-party library for vulnerabilities before we send any protected health information to those APIs or those processing pipelines. We need to make sure that there are no vulnerabilities. And then the SaaS product, if you're using any external SaaS product, like for example, if you're using a tool for dashboards and visualization, etc., we need to make sure that those tools fit our security and cost model. And last but not least, we have vulnerability weighting. We need to thoroughly evaluate the and perform software supply chain audits to make sure that the third party apps and frameworks that we are using, that they are in line with our privacy and security models. Okay, so until now we have discussed about HIPAA and the federal law, which is a federal law, and it is basically a baseline for all the laws. But if you're working in a specific state, for example, if you're working in California, some states have stricter laws than the federal HIPAA baseline. For example, if we look at privacy scope, HIPAA only covers, it offers protection to VHI held by covered entities. But in California, a broad personal data protection is provided for residents. Then for consumer rights, HIPAA, according to HIPAA, consumers have right to access or amend their health information. But in a state like California, the consumers have right to delete or opt out of a data set or a research at any time. And they also have stricter rules that HIPAA is standardized nationwide, but laws they are more protective and they will preempt HIPAA if they are more protective. So we need to take into consideration that thing as well. That if our project is in California and some other state that has stricter laws, we need to comply with those laws as well. Then beyond the USA, there are also different laws internationally, like the GDPR is a stricter law than in the US. And then there are also LMIC standards, which are for low and middle income countries. So collaborations with World Health Organization or any NGOs in low and middle class income countries will require navigating GDPR level privacy. So many low and middle income countries that do not have proper privacy laws or health protection laws in place. So if any organization is working collaboratively with WHO or any NGO, if they're working in those low and middle class income countries, they need GDPR level privacy and they need to navigate to that to protect the local citizens from to protect their privacy and their security. There are two things that we need to consider. First is the local sovereignty to respect the data sharing ethics and global health. Just because a place does not have a law in place does not mean that we should just breach their privacy and like take benefit of the that thing. Then the LMIC ethics, which is balancing data access with local ownership and privacy. Okay, beyond just complying with laws, we need proper compliance documentation, which is the paper trail. It is to maintain a centralized repo for all the regulatory approvals for clinical AI projects. So we need to have a proper centralized repository where we keep track of all those papers and documents. We need to have logs of all signed agreements like data usage agreements or business associate agreements, etc. We need to have institutional IRB approval letters in that repository, and we need to have the cloud cost estimates and data management plans in place. So, to wrap it all up to how this workflow basically works, the compliance workflow, we first define if the protected health information stays on premises in our hospital or it moves to cloud. It depends on the sensitivity of that information and the need that if we need to move it to cloud or keep it on premises. And then signing contracts with the cloud provider, and after that we need to draft data usage agreements and finalize the data use terms for limited data sets. And after that we need to set up access management and identity management and logging for all the protected health information access to see who does what to when. So the final legal deliverable would be that every capstone protocol must include a section on HIPAA, business associate agreements, and data use agreements. Final deliverables are incomplete without rigorous data management plan and verified cloud security architecture. So these are all the things that we need to have in place in a central repository. So that's it for the legal and ethical compliance in clinical AI.